Hey everyone. So I got to thinking about, my walk with Jesus and, the different choices that I've made in my life and, the more or less the jobs that I've had. And, you go to talk with somebody about that. And some people make you feel as if, you know, your job is horrible, like you have no future and stuff like that. And I mean, that's even brought into like if you have an interest in somebody romantically, your job is looked at and you're judged by the job you have. Whether, if you have a good job, then you are looked at in a positive way by people. But if you don't, you look at as, somebody that is not ambitious. And, you see this all the time in the world, this thinking. And as I'll be getting into this teaching regarding it's coming to the church as well. And so I'm going to call this video Discounting a Person, because that is exactly what happens. It's expected in the world. That's how the world functions. But sadly, this is brought even into the four walls of the church, to where they have adopted this thinking, adopted this judgment, adopted, just discounting somebody by what they do. And so it's bad enough in the church where somebody is judged by what they look like, but it even goes further when they have a magnifying glass looking closely at your situation, and then you're judged even more harshly by this. So we can see Mammon's infiltration in society and the church. And I mean, if you want to know Mammon's way and, the judgments of Mammon, then you need to listen to the people. You need to listen to why others are being criticized by what they do and, financially. And the biggest advocates of this are those that have great jobs. You could be a CEO. Maybe you've spent your time into investing and, different things like that. So you've brought in a lot of money. So I guess in the minds of a lot of people, these people are, just the top. And anybody that doesn't do that is considered very low. And if you want to know Mammon's way, then you look at the judgments of Mammon and you can hear that, you know, by people. You've probably heard it yourself. You know, let's say you have a job, but then you're criticized for not getting even better. You're not criticized for getting even a better education so you can get an even better job. And so I had stated in older videos about the laws of success. And the laws of success are what the financially elite and those who have made the right decisions, these are the laws that they have come up with. And you've heard it yourself. So if you want to go back on past videos, check that out because you can really relate to that. And so I had come up with those laws of success because these are the different things that I've heard by people as I, in my walk and even before I knew Jesus. So I guess one of the judgments, which is from the elite, and, one of them is the laws of success. And this laws of success comes from Mammon. And so one of them is you must have a good paying job that shows ambition. And, we hear this in the world, but like I had already said, is that it's even in the church. This is the thinking that has been brought over from the world, and this is from a mind that has not been renewed. Now, if you want to follow Mammon's way, I mean, you have that choice, but you got to realize that there's a difference between Mammon's way and God's way. They're two different kingdoms in operation. You cannot serve both, because on the flip side, when you're following Mammon, then you have adopted Mammon's ways, you have adopted its laws, you have adopted its criticism. But when you follow God's ways and want to do what God wants you to do, you're operating in a different kingdom. Instead of trusting in yourself, you're now trusting in God. And then, you have to put in each in different categories, you know? So the two are colliding, they are in disagreement. You cannot follow both. Jesus even said that you cannot follow God and Mammon. So Mammon has a set standard for all men and women. And this is in life, so a job, I already touched on it, where, you know, it depends on your job. Does your job show ambition? Does your job show uh, something that would bring in a lot of money to the approval of those that are following Mammon? Are you a part of investing? Are you saving all your money? These are the things that are very important, because if you're saving your money, then you have something to rely on when something bad happens. And of course, there is all a negative regarding this. This is all the thinking of Mammon. And when you start switching yourself over to God's ways, then you can see clearly how Mammon's ways are the complete opposite of God's ways. God says that my ways are not your ways and my thoughts are not your thoughts. So, anybody that's following Mammon has a way of thinking, and some people think that God's following uh, whoever somebody. For example, somebody may be thinking that God, approves of their decisions, as they are following Mammon. So they're thinking, well, I save a lot of money. I have a great paying job. I have all these worldly accomplishments. God has my approval. I have God's approval. But if you look closely in scripture, it's there's no approval from God, because those ways are different than God's ways. You know, Somebody could say that, I need to save, but Jesus said that look at the birds of the air. They don't sow or reap or store away in barns. They're not saving, but the Father is taking care of them. So, man, when he tends to save, then that is his reliance. So, what happens if his reliance is taken away? What happens if the money that he has in his bank account is, totally removed by scammers? A good point is the movie The Beekeeper with Jason Statham, and um, Felicia Rashad, who is known as Claire Huxtable from the Cosby Show. She plays in it at the beginning, and she is um, the overseer of this charity account. So these scammers end up calling her, and they put up their scam, you know, you know, under the guise of somebody that is working in technical support for, I guess, her computer account. So they call her, getting all her information, and then all of a sudden, once she puts her password in to that charity fund, with these scammers looking at what she's doing, as soon as she hits enter, once she submits the password, her computer automatically shuts off. and then it comes to again. She looks at her charity account, which it's like thousands of dollars. She looks at it again and it's completely zero. They have taken everything from that account. And so anybody that is in that position where they think, oh, I'm safe, I have a lot of money in my account to fall back on, that can easily be removed, from that example. So God says that, our reliance needs to be on Him and not on anybody else. So you could see the difference between mammon and God's ways. And of course, we have the choice of following each, but we need to realize that if we're following our way of doing things, it's going to fail. And so Mammon has a set standard for a job, in investing and saving. And then we have education. You know, Parents are pushing their kids to think about what they want to do when they get older. And then, whatever they want to do, you become a doctor. Well, you need to prepare for that. You go to school for so many years in order to get your doctorate degree. And so you're pushed into having a trade so that you can think about your future and for the purpose of being all set financially. And having a good trade, there's nothing wrong with that. But the problem is that you can start acting in a prideful kind of way, looking down on those who haven't made the right decisions like you have. So Mammon has taught the financially elite, what is really important, and laws of success have been created from this for all people to follow. Somebody doesn't fit into their mold. Think of this mold of a man, and it could be a woman as well. This is a set standard. Think of a mold in which somebody can lay down in, and your arms are in there, your legs are in there, and you fit perfectly in there. All right, so there is a mold that is set by the financial elite for people to fit into. And so if one part of you doesn't fit into that mold, then you are given criticism for not making the right decisions in order to fit into that exact mold. So once you are judged and criticized, that usually moves people into making those decisions to the approval of the financially elite. Now, the world operates in this, but unfortunately, this has been carried into the church to where believers have this exact mindset, you know? And so when they have this exact mindset, then God's ways are not the focus and God's ways are not being followed. It's mammon. And how many have disregarded what Jesus had said? You cannot serve God and mammon. If you really want to live for God, then you need to hear what He wants you to do personally, and not follow what you have followed this entire, your entire life in the church. All right. Now, with this set standard by Mammon for everybody to follow, and Christians have followed that set standard, there then is a judgment to anybody that has not, you know, fit into this mold by the financially elite. So Christians, like the world, judge somebody by their job position. For example, like me, I was a cashier and I was also a clerk at a Christian bookstore. So, according to the ways of Mammon, my job is pathetic and it shows a lack of ambition. And so, what is the recommendation of Mammon? Well, you need to quit that job. You need to go back to school and learn a good trade, or you need to seek out a better job. And so, this is what I heard from the world and even by the church. So, this is Mammon's set way of thinking. Another job, A gas station attendant. Well, you're then judged for not being ambitious and you have no future in this. Now, let's say McDonald's. You are still judged by your position. If you are a cashier at McDonald's, well, you need to work on getting better. That is the judgment that you receive. If you flip burgers, you need to get better. You need to strive to be a manager in that position. And so, even if you work at McDonald's, to some in their thinking, it's not reputable. I mean, you could be a manager at McDonald's, but then are you going to be judged for that very position that you have? Now, let's look at a CEO. Well, they are considered the top. You have the approval then of people because you have a great job. If you're a guy, you're looked at as, top. You know, you're a good find. But if you don't have that, you're not a great find. If you're a manager of a business, that's approved of. And so when I was in dating sites, I would be speaking with like different girls, and I can tell them I'm an author. Oh, wow, that's great. So how much money are you bringing in? That's the first question. Are your books selling a lot? Uh, what else do you do? Well, if I'm telling them that my books haven't sold, well, how are you making a living? I'm a delivery driver currently. How much money are you bringing in? There's another question. Because it's okay to be a delivery driver, but you have to bring in a lot of money. And if you bring in a lot of money, then you have the approval of people. But then you can also be judged for a lack of ambition. Or are you going to do this forever? So we can see this, that the person in itself is discounted. You're not a good find if you don't have a good job position. And so I remember talking with so many girls on the dating site, and you can feel like these people are trying to judge you and make you feel shamed for what you're doing. I mean, you could be a hard worker, but you still have a pathetic job according to them. So a person with poor jobs are discounted in many people's eyes. Now, the question is, does God side with mammon? And I had already spoken that Jesus said that you cannot serve God and mammon. So I recall, when Samuel, he was looking for God's chosen king. And so he sees David and, more or less, he says, Lord, this one, how can he be the king? And God says that, God does not look at people the way man looks at them. God sees the heart while man looks at the surface. So my question is, have you taken Mammon's ways? Have you been following Mammon? And have you been discounting people in your walk by what they do? You know, Somebody could be a cashier. Have you criticized them for not being ambitious? Have you criticized somebody for not saving, for not investing? You know, Anything that has fit, to the ways of Mammon. Have you criticized somebody for that? So if you have, then we as Christians, we need to see people with different eyes and not with the eyes that we have always had. You know, we have followed the ways of the world. We got saved, yet we still followed the ways of the world. We can't do this anymore if we're going to follow God's ways. We have to see people as God sees them. We have to hear what God says about somebody, you know? And that, I think that is what we have done wrong in the body, is that we have followed Mammon's ways, we have followed its thinking, and we have not followed God's ways and his opinion on people. That's the first thing that we need to do, is we need to hear God's voice. God, what do you think about this person? You know, Lord, teach me about what you want me to do. Teach me about your ways. Am I following Mammon? In what ways am I following Mammon and not you? Because, if you're following Mammon, Mammon's ways goes against God's ways, as I have already said. So I wanted to share this with you because this is one of the things that I had noticed in my walk, talking with different people. And so, in closing, I had, thought just how the church has come to this place, and how judgments have been formed by different people. Where in the past, where, having a certain thing like investing or saving a lot of money or having a great career and a great job, these are all the things that the world has set up. And so maybe once it was started as a recommendation, then through the years, this recommendation has turned into a moral law. And so if you don't follow this moral law, you're criticized. So, for example, if you don't have a good career, maybe in the past it was a recommendation, but through the years, it turned into a moral law. And so if you're not set into this mold of the financially elite, you're taught to feel ashamed for not doing this. And this shame is not from God. So I just wanted to share this with you. And I hope it's given you something to think about. And if you have been following the world's ways and not God's ways, we have the chance of, changing things. And then basically what I want you to walk away from this video with is asking God, Lord, am I following Mammon's ways? Have I discounted people? Have I treated people as refuse because they're not following the world? So if you can take something away from this video, let it be something that you can go to God with and ask him to show you and to give you that opportunity to change things. So thank you for taking the time to watch.